Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the DataVision LEDGO D600. This is a 60 watt light. There is a 120 watt version as well. Okay, now the first thing to talk about with this light is the color quality, because that is one of the main features of this light that make it actually worth the price. Now it does have a ton of other cool features that make it a great light, but really if you're paying this much money, you're going to want this color quality, and that's really what you're paying for. Now, when it comes to actual professional lights and using them for broadcast uses for television and film, then CRI is not really a rating that they use. It's just not reliable enough. So that's when TLCI ratings actually come into play. So I'm going to put a link down below to the Guild of Television Cameramen. There'll be two links. The first one is an explanation about TLCI if you want to read more about that. And the second link will be to see how this actually compares to actual professional lights that are actually used in TV and film studios. So that is the most important thing about this light and what actually makes this a professional light that costs more than all my other lights. So I think that's the first thing to check out, whether that's really important for you. If it isn't, then there are other lights that would be good as well that have high CRI ratings, but that aren't actually quite as good as this light when it comes to being really accurate. Now in this test over here, we're looking at how this light actually mixes together with sunlight. Now this is not direct sunlight, it's coming in through a window and it is a little bit overcast, so this is not exactly perfect daylight color temperature, but this will give you a little bit of an idea of how this works together with window light. And as you can see in the example, there is a very small color difference between this and daylight, which is to be expected because daylight changes color throughout the day. Things like clouds and bouncing off foliage and the position of the sun in the sky, they all make a difference to the color of the light, but this does work very well for mixing together with daylights. It's got a lovely Fresnel attachment which works really well and is of course zoomable through here. It also has options for attaching batteries. Here I've got my Kaio Max Star battery. This works really well for about 3 hours at maximum power, so that's really nice. And both the battery holder and the AC adapter holder can clamp onto your light stand, which is a lovely feature. Just keeps things really organized and nice and easy to work with. Now both the 60 watt and the 120 watt versions are completely silent. There's no fan in there. Not super lightweight, but not very heavy either. So just over 2.5 kilograms for the light itself, and it'll probably be around 3 kilograms with the accessories. 40 Celsius now that it's been running full power for a while, and the LED itself is around 100 Celsius or a little under that. Now this light is actually mostly made of plastic, but it feels like very solid plastic. Now we've got a really nice screen on here, but what I'd like to see is have the screen always display the power output, because right now it's giving me information that I really don't ever need to see, but that's not really a big issue. It just means that every time you turn it on, you need to press a couple of buttons, which is that and that. And then for the rest of the time that you're using the light, you will have that display showing you the power output that you're currently using. I would like to see that power output shown bigger, just so that I can see it from further away. Not a big issue, but just would be a little bit nicer since you've got this big screen. It'd be nice to use it. And this does show the color temperature, but this light doesn't actually have a controllable color temperature, which is perfectly fine for me. Personally, I don't like to choose lights that have a variable color temperature because it means that I'm paying more money and getting less power output in most cases. So a light like this that has a fixed color temperature, perfectly fine for me. So we've got a few more buttons here and they don't really do much. We can change the channel through the buttons here, but that's about it. Now this light does have a remote. I'm not sure if it comes with the remote or not. Same goes for all the other accessories. You have to, check and see what you're buying, the package that you're buying, what accessories it comes with. So this remote works, but it's being a little bit buggy. I've had issues like this with other remotes as well. But this remote, for some reason, this used to work, but now the second time I've tried it, this actually doesn't turn it on and off. It controls the brightness, but it won't turn the light on and off. So it works, sort of, and this is a very sort of cheap feeling remote. It doesn't feel high quality at all, just huge and bulky. Uses 3 AAA batteries, which is good, easy to find and replace. A little attachment that has the Fresnel lens. And instead of that, what I'm going to do is attach this piece. Now this piece allows me to connect the LEDGO softbox, or the same piece allows me to connect other accessories which have a Bowens mount. So for example, if I want to use something like this, like a grid, then that would clip onto there using the standard connector for Bowens. Same thing goes for big softboxes or whatever it is you want to connect to there. You've got a nice adapter. So here's the LEDGO softbox, which is actually really nice, and I love how quick this is to open and close. And I do personally prefer larger softboxes than this, but this is a very nice softbox. As long as you can get it, not too far away from your subject, then this can create very nice soft light. And when you want to actually open and close the softbox, it's super easy. You basically just do that. Nice and flat, nice and quick. But if you want to fold this up into something smaller, then this does actually fold up. Eventually you can actually close this up like that. It's not very easy, you have to fight it a little bit. And it also came with a little case that this slides into to hold it like this, nice and compact. And then when you want to open it up, and it folds up, and then to open it back up, just do that, and then readjust the fabric onto the front, onto there, and then that clips onto the front of your light. Nice and easy, nice and quick, just the way I like it. And then the softbox is turnable like this. Really lovely. 3200 ISO, which is the sort of minimum on the A7S if you're using the S-Log2 mode, which a lot of us do, then this gives you a very, very, very dim light, which is a very good thing. It's great that this is able to go very dim. But of course, most people want a bright light. So let's see how bright this can go. And the reason I'm reading these out to you is because the screen of the light meter is limited in how many digits it can display. So it has a X10 mode and an X100 mode. 1% very dark will go up to 10% already a usable light. You could get some nice results with this. So at 20%, we're getting 470 lux. 30%, we've got 900 lux. 40%, we've got 1,400 lux. 50%, we've got almost 2,000 lux. 60%, we've got just over 2,000. Then 70%, we've got 2,500. And 100% at 1 meter, we've got just about 2,500 lux, or just a little bit over. And so as you can see, the last little bit, between 80 and 100 doesn't make much of a difference. At 23%, we're getting correct exposure at ISO 100 and f1.8. So now let's see, if you don't have a fast lens or if you want to use a zoom lens, so we'll go up to f2.8 and we're going to set our ISO still at 100. At about 42%, we've got a nice exposure. Now, some people are using very low cost lenses, or you want to keep your lenses very compact. So some people are limited to about f5.6. Bring our ISO up to 250, which is perfectly acceptable for almost every camera you can get. Let's see what happens for those of us shooting on the A7S, stuck at 3200 ISO, and we want to use f1.8 since that's giving us nice shallow depth of field, and we don't want to use an ND filter because we forgot the ND filter at home. So with those settings, to get a nice exposure, we're going to be at 4% of what this light can do. So you can see that with something like the A7S, you've got a ton of range to work with. So now I've got the lovely Fresnel lens attached, and this is going to give us more power and aim the power and prevent spill as well. So we've got a lens here, a glass lens with a mesh protector at the front of it, really lovely. And then we've got these nice barn doors to help aim the light, which it actually does a nice job with. It's not completely perfect. It's not giving us perfectly hard lines. You can see that these barn doors are, pretty effective, and, we can actually create a nice little spotlight with them. And here's zoomed in all the way. We still do have a small amount of spill, but not too bad. Okay, so I've set the camera to f22 because otherwise this is just too bright. Okay, so now we're starting with the Fresnel lens attached and the barn doors opened, and we have the Fresnel extended all the way. And we're going to start off with 1%, 6 lux. 5%, 250 lux. 10%, we're getting 1,000 lux. At 30%, we've got 7,000 lux. At 50%, we've got 15,000 lux. At 70%, we've got just over 20,000 lux, and then 100%, once again, a little over 20,000 lux. Okay, so now we're going to look at how much this can focus the light using the Fresnel attachment, and we're going to look at how much difference there is in brightness as it does that. Now, what you might also want to look at is the circle that it creates and the sort of edges that it creates. And now this is by far the best performing Fresnel lens I've seen when it comes to LED lights. This gives a really nice light without too much of a hot spot. It is slightly brighter in the center, but there's a really nice fall off. There's no discoloration in the edges, which happens with most other lights. There are no lines in the middle of the image here. Basically, if you want an LED Fresnel lens, something focusable and something that works nicely with barn doors, then this is an absolutely lovely option. So we've got the camera set to 1/50th of a second, f5.6 and ISO 100. So we've got the light set to 100%, and I've got the barn doors open here, and I've got the Fresnel lens attached. And so right now it's at its shortest distance, meaning the most diffused light. And I'm actually just going to turn the camera a little bit so that you guys can see that fall off there. So as you can see, we've got quite a dark edge right over there. And so, not too much spill. The only spill that I'm actually seeing is just what's bouncing off the, off the white and then hitting the ceiling and then bouncing back. There isn't actually any noticeable spill coming from the light. As you can see, there's no spill going off in the direction that we don't want, even without the barn doors. So the widest mode that it can give, that's just under 7,000 lux. Then when we go to, I would say about half the size of the circle, then we're getting around 12,000 lux or 12,500 lux. So now zoomed in all the way, we're getting just under 22,000 lux. So that's very nice and bright, but of course there are brighter lights in this. Now just for comparison, I wanted to show you how this compares to the Aperture 160. Now these lights are not similar in any other way other than just to compare the brightness and show you the difference between something like this that a lot of people might already have and the LEDGO. Now the LEDGO is a better light in basically every way possible other than just size and portability. Okay, so here's a really quick example. I've got a window that I want to have looking nice, so I've set the exposure to the window, but then the actor, let's say that's me, is too dark. So then what I want to do is raise the exposure, which would make the window too bright. So for example, by the way, I'm just eyeballing this, but for example, right now, the exposure on me should be a little better, and the window is now blown out. So then the actual thing that you would do if you have lights is you'd turn on some lights. So here is an example. I've turned on the LEDGO. It's pointed at the ceiling away from me, so the light is just bouncing onto me, which is going to give a nicer soft light than just pointing the light directly at me. But this situation doesn't have very strong sunlight. If there's very strong sunlight, then the LEDGO might not be strong enough to both have the light diffused and have the light be able to overpower sunlight slightly, or at least match sunlight coming in through a window. I've actually come across that situation a lot, which is why most of the time I try and use more powerful lights. Okay, so I've got the camera set to auto ISO so that it will change the exposure as I change the brightness of the lights, and we're just going to do a quick flickering test. So right now I've got it set to 1/50th of a second. Obviously at 1/50th it's perfectly fine, and we're going to go up in case you want to shoot some slow motion. So 1/100th of a second, perfectly fine. Change it to different brightnesses, no flickering issues. We're going to do a nice big jump up to 1/500th of a second, which once again you wouldn't use unless you're shooting slow motion, or if you, I don't know, forgot your ND filter or something, which is not recommended, but yeah. So 1/2000th, no problem, no flickering. Testing out different brightnesses. This is maximum brightness, and we'll go all the way down to almost minimum brightness. That's fine. And just jump all the way up to 1/8000th of a second, which is the maximum that most cameras will do. Actually, some will only go to 1/4000th. But yes, that's perfectly fine. No flickering issues. Really good job on the dimmer on this light. So yeah, awesome. Now I don't actually have a slow motion camera right here to show you with this, but as you might know, slow motion cameras do need a lot of light depending on what camera you're using. So this might work for some slow motion users, but it's not really ideal since it's not giving a huge amount of light compared to some other lights. So in conclusion, this light is pretty awesome, and I think it's definitely worth the money if you're a professional and you need this kind of color quality. But if you're working on a lower budget, then there are other great lights, and they will in most situations be less restricting when it comes to your exposure settings and your lighting, and being able to diffuse the light more. Once again, this works very well in a closed environment where you're just using lights like this rather than having to fight sunlight. So obviously I can't really say whether you should buy this or not. It really depends on your uses, but when it comes to actually, whether this light is good, hell yes, it's fantastic. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Visit my channel for lots more awesome filmmaking and photography videos, like lighting techniques, DIY projects, behind the scenes tutorials, cameras, lenses, adapters, shoulder rigs, stabilizers, flashes, LEDs, microphones, bags, straps, studio backgrounds, tripods, float heads, sliders, multi-tools, and lots more cool stuff.